She thought she was doing everything right, eating at home, watching her portions, skipping fast food. And still, when the lab results came back, her doctor circled two numbers and said, "We need to talk about what you've been eating." She was 67 years old, and the four foods that may have been quietly putting pressure on her kidneys were not junk food. They were the ordinary, familiar foods she had been eating almost every single day without a second thought. I'm Grace Wells, kidney and diabetes health educator for older adults. And today, I want to walk you through her story because it may sound a lot like yours. This is not a scare video. And I'm not here to tell you that you've been doing everything wrong. What I am going to do is show you 4 everyday foods that may make kidneys work harder, especially after 60, especially if certain numbers in your blood work are starting to shift. And then I'm going to give you something practical you can actually use. Stay with me through this one, because the 4th food on this list is the one most seniors never suspect. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why it matters. Let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret is a composite story, a blend of real experiences that many older adults share. She is not one specific person, and this is not a medical case study. But her story reflects something I hear over and over again from seniors navigating kidney health after 60. Margaret lived alone in a quiet neighborhood. She cooked most of her meals at home. She walked 30 minutes every morning. She didn't smoke. She limited alcohol. By most standards, she was doing well. But she had one habit she never questioned. Every single day, for years, she ate the same 4 foods. They were easy. They were familiar. They felt safe. Then her annual blood work came back. Her creatinine was slightly elevated. Her eGFR had dropped a few points from the year before. Her doctor didn't say she had kidney disease, but he said, "We need to watch this closely, and we need to look at what you're eating every day." She went home that evening and looked at her kitchen, and for the first time, she saw those 4 foods differently. This is what kidney health after 60 can look like. Not dramatic, not sudden, just slow, quiet changes in numbers that your body doesn't announce with loud warning signs. Not until much later. So let's talk about those 4 foods. And let's talk about why, depending on your labs, your health history, and what your doctor has told you, they may deserve more attention than you've been giving them. The first food Margaret ate almost every day was something you might have in your refrigerator right now. Deli meat, sliced turkey, ham, roast beef, the kind that comes pre-packaged or sliced fresh at the counter. She didn't eat it in huge amounts. A few slices on bread at lunch, sometimes with crackers, sometimes straight from the container when she wasn't very hungry. It seemed harmless. It's protein, she thought. Protein is good. And here's the thing, protein is important after 60. Muscle loss is a real concern for older adults. So this is not about saying deli meat is always the enemy. It's more complicated than that. The concern with deli meat and kidney health after 60 is really about 2 things: sodium and phosphorus additives. Most pre-packaged deli meats are cured, preserved, or processed in ways that add very large amounts of sodium. A few thin slices can contain 400 to 700 milligrams of sodium, sometimes more. And when you eat that at lunch and then have a packaged soup at dinner and a frozen meal later in the week, that sodium adds up quickly across the day. For seniors with kidney concerns, high sodium intake may raise blood pressure, which adds stress to the kidneys over time. The kidneys are responsible for filtering and balancing fluid in the body. When sodium is consistently high, that filtering job becomes harder. But there's something else inside processed meats that many seniors don't know to look for. And that's inorganic phosphorus, which is used as a preservative additive in many processed and packaged protein products. Now, healthy kidneys can manage phosphorus without much trouble. But when kidney function is even slightly reduced, as it often is after 60, phosphorus can start to build up in the blood. Elevated phosphorus over time may put additional strain on the kidneys and affect bone health. And here is what makes this particularly tricky. Inorganic phosphorus from food additives is absorbed much more readily into the bloodstream than the natural phosphorus found in whole foods, which means you may be getting more of it than a simple food label suggests. If your doctor has mentioned watching your phosphorus levels, or if your eGFR is below 60, this is worth a direct conversation with your doctor or a renal dietitian. Not everyone needs to avoid deli meat completely, but understanding the sodium and the additives inside it, that's the first step. A practical swap that many seniors find helpful. Instead of pre-sliced packaged deli meats, some people do better with a portion of freshly cooked chicken breast, turkey cooked at home, or canned fish that is rinsed well to reduce sodium. The difference in sodium and additive phosphorus can be significant depending on what you choose. But always, before making big changes to your protein sources, ask your doctor first, especially if you're managing diabetes, blood pressure, or any stage of kidney disease. Now here's what Margaret usually ate alongside that deli meat: crackers and salted snacks. This is the second food, and I want to spend a moment here because it tends to surprise people. Crackers feel neutral. They feel like a background food, a vehicle for something else. You don't sit down and think of crackers as something that could affect your kidney labs. They're just crackers, but look at the back of a standard cracker package the next time you're in your kitchen. A small serving, which the label might define as 5 or 6 crackers, can contain 150 to 300 milligrams of sodium. And most people don't eat 5 crackers. They eat 12, 15, sometimes more, while they're reading or watching television or waiting for dinner. The sodium alone is worth paying attention to, but there's something else in many packaged crackers and snack foods that also shows up on the ingredient list. Phosphate additives: sodium phosphate, disodium phosphate, calcium phosphate. These are used to extend shelf life, improve texture, and maintain freshness. And just like with deli meats, those inorganic phosphate additives absorb differently than phosphorus from whole foods. For most healthy adults under 60 with strong kidney function, this is likely not a major concern. But for seniors over 60 who already have some degree of reduced kidney function, which is actually very common and often undetected, this kind of phosphorus load day after day may be worth discussing with a doctor. The label on the front of the package often says things like whole grain or baked, not fried, or lower fat. And those things may be true, but they don't tell you about the sodium, and they don't tell you about the phosphate additives hiding in the ingredient list. This is what I mean when I say kidney health after 60 is often about reading the back of the label, not the front. A habit worth trying: the next time you're at the grocery store, flip the package over. Look at the ingredient list. If you see more than 1 or 2 phosphate-related ingredients, that product is likely high in additive phosphorus. Some seniors find that switching to plain rice cakes, unsalted nuts in small amounts, or low-sodium whole grain options makes a meaningful difference in their daily sodium and phosphorus load. Again, depending on your labs and your health history, the right amount for you may be different. Your doctor or a renal dietitian can give you specific numbers to aim for. If you've been checking your own labels lately and you're starting to see a pattern, that feeling of recognition is exactly what I make these videos for. And if this is already making you think about what's sitting in your own kitchen cabinet right now, you're not alone. The third food Margaret ate regularly was something almost every busy senior relies on at some point: frozen meals and instant dinner options. Maybe it was a frozen pasta dish after a long day. Maybe it was an instant noodle soup on a cold afternoon. Maybe it was one of those healthy choice or lean cuisine style meals she picked up at the grocery store because the packaging said low calorie or reduced fat or high protein. And here is something that may genuinely surprise you. Some of the frozen meals and packaged dinner options that are specifically marketed as healthy or as good for your heart still contain extraordinarily high amounts of sodium per serving. It is not unusual to see a single frozen meal containing 800, 900, even 1,100 milligrams of sodium in one meal. To put that in context, many guidelines suggest that adults, particularly seniors with kidney concerns or blood pressure issues, consider limiting sodium to somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 milligrams per day. A single frozen dinner can take up more than half of that in one sitting. And here's what often happens. Someone eats a frozen dinner for lunch because it was easy. Then they have soup from a can at dinner because they weren't very hungry. And they don't realize that they have already consumed close to 2 days' worth of sodium before they've gone to bed. This isn't about blaming convenience food. Life is busy. Cooking every meal from scratch is not always realistic, especially for seniors living alone or managing other health conditions. But understanding what is actually inside those convenient packages is the first step toward making adjustments that work for your real life. The phosphorus concern appears here too. Many frozen meals include processed cheeses, cured meats, or sauces that contain multiple phosphate additives. That combination of high sodium and high additive phosphorus in one meal can be particularly worth paying attention to if your kidneys are already working at a reduced capacity. Practical option: some seniors find that cooking in batches on weekends, making simple soups or grain dishes and portioning them out, gives them the convenience of a quick meal without the sodium and additive load of most commercial frozen options. Even swapping one frozen meal per week for a homemade low-sodium option can be a meaningful step over time. And if you do rely on frozen meals, checking the sodium on the label before you buy and aiming for options under 600 milligrams per serving can make a real difference. Not every frozen product is the same. There is a wide range. This next part matters more than most people expect, because the fourth food on this list is one that almost no one connects to kidney health, and yet, for seniors over 60, it may be one of the most important conversations to have with a doctor. The fourth food Margaret ate every day was sweet, not cake every morning, not candy every night, but sweet things that seemed small and harmless. A sweetened yogurt for breakfast, a glass of juice with lunch, a cookie or two in the afternoon, a flavored coffee drink, a small pastry. Individually, each of these felt minor, but together, every day, they were delivering a consistent load of refined sugar and rapidly absorbed carbohydrates. And here is the connection that many seniors are never clearly told. Blood sugar and kidney health after 60 are deeply linked. When blood sugar rises repeatedly after meals, and especially when it stays elevated over time, it creates a state of chronic stress on the small blood vessels inside the kidneys. The kidneys are filled with millions of tiny filtering units called glomeruli, and those filtering units are fed by very small blood vessels. Those blood vessels are sensitive to changes in blood sugar. Over time, consistently elevated blood sugar can damage those small blood vessels and impair how well the kidneys filter. This is one of the most common pathways to kidney problems in older adults. Diabetes and prediabetes are among the leading causes of kidney disease in seniors in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. And here is the part that truly matters. Many older adults have elevated blood sugar or early prediabetes without knowing it. Because in the early stages, there are often no clear symptoms. You don't feel it, you don't see it, but it is showing up in your labs, quietly, year by year. Sweetened yogurts, fruit juices, flavored coffee drinks, packaged sweets, white bread, white rice, sugary cereals. These are all foods that can raise blood sugar quickly. And for seniors who already have a family history of diabetes, who are managing early blood sugar changes, or who have been told their A1C is creeping up, the daily pattern of sweetened foods may be adding stress to kidneys that are already working harder than they did at 40. This does not mean panic. It means pay attention. It means that if your doctor has mentioned blood sugar or A1C or prediabetes in the last year or two, that conversation is directly connected to your kidney health. They are not separate issues. And it means that small, consistent choices like swapping sweetened yogurt for plain yogurt, choosing water or unsweetened drinks more often, and reducing the frequency of refined carbohydrate snacks may support both blood sugar stability and kidney health over time. These are not dramatic changes, but they are worth asking your doctor about specifically, especially with the question, given my current labs and my kidney function, how much should I be thinking about blood sugar when it comes to my kidneys? That one question could open a conversation you didn't know you needed to have. Now let's pull this together. Because what Margaret eventually understood was not that these 4 foods were each individually catastrophic. It was that she was eating all 4 of them every single day in a pattern that added up to consistent pressure on her kidneys over months and years. Deli meats and processed proteins, high in sodium and phosphate additives, packaged crackers and salted snacks, another daily layer of sodium and additive phosphorus, frozen meals and instant dinners, often surprisingly high in sodium and processed ingredients, sweetened foods and refined carbohydrates, a daily blood sugar load that affects the smallest, most delicate filtering structures inside the kidneys. None of these alone is necessarily a crisis, but the pattern, day after day, year after year, especially after 60, when kidney function naturally begins to change, that pattern is worth understanding. Kidney health after 60 is not only about dramatic medical events, it is often about slow, quiet, cumulative pressure from everyday choices that were never explained clearly enough. And here is what I want you to take away from this. You don't need to make 10 changes at once. You don't need to empty your refrigerator tonight. What Margaret did was start with one question. She looked at her grocery list and asked, which of these things did my doctor ever mention? And then she brought a simple list to her next appointment and said, I want to understand which of these I should be watching more closely given my current kidney labs. That is a conversation worth having. Tonight, write down the 4 foods you eat most often, not the foods you eat occasionally, the ones you reach for almost every single day without thinking. And tomorrow, I want you to look at them the way Margaret looked at her kitchen. Not with fear, but with the kind of clear-eyed attention that can actually make a difference. A small note before I close. Everything I've shared today is for educational purposes only. I am not your doctor, and this video is not medical advice. Kidney health guidance for seniors depends on your individual labs, your eGFR, your blood pressure, your blood sugar history, your medications, and many other factors that your doctor knows and I do not. Before making any significant changes to your diet, especially if you've already been told to watch your potassium, phosphorus, protein, or sodium, please speak with your doctor or a registered renal dietitian first. They can give you guidance that is specific to your situation. If you've been eating one or more of these 4 foods regularly and you had no idea about the sodium or the phosphate additives, you're not alone. Most people aren't told to look at these things until a lab number comes back changed. Leave a comment below with this. Which of these 4 foods shows up most often on your daily plate? Deli meat, crackers, frozen meals, or something sweet? Your answer may help another senior watching this video realize they're not the only one. If this video helped you understand something you wish someone had explained earlier, there's more coming. Tomorrow, we're going to look at the breakfast habit many seniors repeat every single morning, one that quietly affects kidney labs without ever being flagged. It's simpler than you think, and it's worth knowing about. If this is the kind of clear kidney health guidance you wish someone had explained earlier, this channel is here to keep doing exactly that. I'm Grace Wells. Take good care of yourself, and I'll see you tomorrow.